You worked hard. You saved. You planned. You retired. Maybe you've got decent health, a comfortable home, family that checks in. On paper, this should be the good part. So why do you wake up at 3 a.m. with this gnawing feeling that something's missing? Why does finally having time feel more like staring into a void than enjoying freedom? Here's what nobody tells you. That feeling isn't a personal failure. It's not because you didn't plan well enough or didn't achieve enough. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of philosophy's most brutally honest thinkers, diagnosed this exact problem 200 years ago. And his answer is going to challenge everything you thought about satisfaction and happiness. In the next 25 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why you're never satisfied, even after success, and why that chronic dissatisfaction isn't your fault. You'll understand the invisible force Schopenhauer called the will that keeps you perpetually hungry. And you'll get 3 practical ways to find actual relief, not just distraction. If you're tired of feeling like you should be happier than you are, hit that like button now. This one's going to sting a little before it helps. Let's go. Let me describe someone. You tell me if it sounds familiar. This person spent 30, maybe 40 years building a life. Career, family, savings, home. They checked all the boxes society said would lead to happiness. They even made it to retirement without major catastrophe. By every external measure, they've made it. And yet, there's this persistent, low-grade dissatisfaction that won't go away. Not depression exactly, not crisis, just this sense that something's perpetually out of reach. They keep thinking, maybe if I just had a little more, maybe if I traveled more, maybe if I took up that hobby. But nothing quite scratches the itch. Here's the part that makes it worse, the guilt. Because you know you should be grateful. You know people have it harder. You know complaining about this makes you sound entitled or ungrateful. So you keep quiet about it, thinking you're the only one feeling this way. You're not. After 50, this feeling intensifies because the usual distractions stop working. You can't throw yourself into work anymore. You can't promise yourself, someday when I have time. You have time now, and the emptiness is louder than ever. That's when you realize the problem isn't what you haven't achieved. The problem is something deeper, something wired into the human condition itself. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this better than almost any philosopher before or since. He didn't offer sunny optimism or motivational slogans. He offered something more valuable, the brutal truth about why satisfaction always slips through your fingers. And once you understand his diagnosis, you can finally stop blaming yourself for feeling this way. But first, you need to understand what Schopenhauer called the will, and why it's been running your life without you knowing it. Schopenhauer wasn't talking about willpower or self-discipline when he used the word will. He meant something far more fundamental and far more disturbing. The will in his philosophy is the blind, insatiable force that drives all of existence. It's not rational. It has no end goal. It just wants. Constantly. Endlessly. Without ever being truly satisfied. Think of it this way. You're not really in control of your desires. You didn't choose to want financial security. The will pushed you toward it. You didn't rationally decide to crave recognition or companionship. The will generated those needs. Even your drive for comfort, for health, for meaning. None of that came from your conscious choice. You're being moved by this deeper force, and it doesn't care about your happiness. Here's the kicker. The will can never be permanently satisfied. It's not designed that way. When you finally get what you want, the promotion, the retirement account, the dream vacation, there's a brief moment of relief. Maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks if you're lucky. Then the will immediately finds a new target, a new if only, a new thing you need before you can finally be at peace. Schopenhauer saw this playing out everywhere. In nature, animals are driven by instinct to eat, reproduce, survive, and then die, making room for the next generation to do the same. In humans, it's the same mechanism, just dressed up in nicer clothes. We chase career success, then retirement comfort, then legacy. Then what? The will keeps generating new desires, because that's all it knows how to do. This isn't pessimism for its own sake. This is Schopenhauer giving you the map to understand why you've been on a treadmill your whole life. Why retirement didn't bring the peace you expected. Why having enough never feels like enough. The will doesn't want you to be satisfied. It wants you to keep wanting. And until you see this mechanism clearly, you'll keep thinking the problem is you. It's not. The problem is the will. And it's running the show. Now let me show you exactly how this plays out in your daily life after 50. Here's the pattern Schopenhauer identified, and once you see it, you'll recognize it everywhere in your life. It goes like this. Desire arises. You pursue the object of desire. You achieve it. Brief satisfaction. Then almost immediately, a new desire arises, and the cycle starts again, over and over, forever. Let's make this concrete for someone in their 50s, 60s, 70s. You spent decades wanting to retire. You saved. You planned. You counted down the years. Finally, the day comes. You walk away from work. For about a month, maybe 2. It feels incredible. Freedom. No alarm clocks. No meetings. Pure relief. Then something shifts. The relief fades. You start thinking, okay, now what? Maybe you take up golf. That's satisfying for a while. Then it's just golf. Maybe you travel. That's exciting. Until you're unpacking from your 3rd trip and thinking, is this it? Is this what I worked 40 years for? The will has already moved on. It's whispering, there must be more than this. So you try to find the next thing. Volunteer work, maybe. New hobbies. Grandkids. Projects around the house. And some of these things are genuinely good. But none of them fill the void permanently. Because the void isn't about lacking activities. The void is the will, endlessly generating new dissatisfaction regardless of what you achieve or acquire. Schopenhauer called this the pendulum of existence, swinging between unfulfilled desire, pain, and temporary satisfaction, boredom. You're either actively wanting something you don't have, which hurts, or you have what you wanted, and you're already bored, looking for the next thing. There's no stable middle ground, no permanent contentment, just the endless swing between craving and emptiness. This is why the advice to just be grateful or count your blessings doesn't work. It's not that gratitude is bad. It's that gratitude doesn't touch the will. The will keeps operating underneath your attempts to be thankful. You can be genuinely grateful for your health and still feel chronically dissatisfied with your life. Those two things can coexist because they're operating on different levels. Gratitude is conscious thought. The will is the engine beneath consciousness, grinding away regardless. And here's where it gets worse for people after 50. You start noticing this pattern more clearly because you've been through the cycle so many times. You've probably tried the obvious solutions. More money would help, right? A bigger nest egg, more financial security. Then you could really relax. Or maybe more experiences, more travel, more adventure, more novelty. Or more purpose. Find that meaningful project, that volunteer gig, that creative pursuit. Whatever your version of more is, you've probably chased it thinking, this time it'll be different. Schopenhauer would tell you, it won't be different. Not because those things are bad, but because the problem isn't scarcity. The problem is the structure of desire itself. Adding more objects of desire doesn't satisfy the will. It just gives the will more toys to play with before it gets bored again. Think about it. If you made another $100,000, would that fundamentally change how you feel? Maybe for a few weeks you'd feel relief, but then your baseline would adjust. You'd start thinking about what you still can't afford, or you'd worry about losing what you have, or you'd wonder if you should have made more earlier. The will would find a way to keep you unsatisfied even with the extra money. Same with experiences. You've probably noticed this already. The first big trip after retirement is incredible. The second is great. By the fifth, you're standing in front of another monument thinking, okay, I've seen it. Now what? Novelty wears off. The will doesn't care how beautiful the sunset is. It's already asking what's next. Here's what Schopenhauer understood that most self-help gurus don't. You can't fill an infinite void with finite things. The will is infinite in its capacity to want. Your time, money, energy are finite. You'll always lose this game if you play it on the will's terms. Always. No matter how much you accumulate or achieve or experience, the will generate new dissatisfaction. This isn't about being ungrateful or pessimistic. This is about seeing clearly. When you finally accept that more isn't the answer, you stop wasting energy chasing solutions that can't work. And that's when you're ready for what Schopenhauer actually recommended. He didn't leave you without options. He just wanted you to understand that the options aren't what you've been told your whole life. So here's what Schopenhauer actually suggested for relief. And the first one might surprise you. Schopenhauer believed that art and aesthetic experience offer temporary liberation from the will. Not permanent. He was too honest for that, but genuine relief nonetheless. When you're truly absorbed in a piece of art, something shifts. The endless wanting quiets down. You're not thinking about what you need or what's missing. You're just present with the experience itself. But here's the critical distinction. He wasn't talking about casually consuming art. He meant genuine aesthetic contemplation. There's a difference between having the TV on while you scroll your phone and actually sitting with a painting or a piece of music and letting it take you somewhere. The first is distraction. The second is what Schopenhauer called the pure subject of knowing, a state where you temporarily forget yourself and your desires. For people after 50, this matters more than ever. You have time now. You can actually sit with a book for 2 hours without guilt. You can visit a museum on a Tuesday morning when it's quiet. You can listen to an entire symphony without checking your watch. These aren't indulgences. They're one of the few genuine reprieves from the tyranny of constant wanting. Think about the last time you were genuinely lost in something beautiful. Maybe it was a sunset you actually stopped to watch instead of photographing. Maybe it was a piece of music that made you forget where you were. Maybe it was a book that consumed you so completely that hours passed without you noticing. In those moments, were you thinking about what you didn't have? Were you worried about the future? No, you were free. That's what Schopenhauer meant. Art doesn't give you what you want. It temporarily dissolves the wanting itself. The will goes quiet. Not forever. It'll come roaring back. But for those moments, you get actual peace. Not the peace of achievement or satisfaction, but the peace of forgetting yourself entirely. Practical application. Choose one art form and commit to deep engagement with it. Not as background noise. Not as something to check off a list, but as a deliberate practice of stepping out of the will's grip. Once a week, minimum. Protect that time. It's not leisure, it's relief. But art isn't the only path Schopenhauer identified. The second one cuts even deeper. Schopenhauer's second path to relief was compassion, but not the superficial kind. Not the I should volunteer to feel better about myself kind. He meant genuine, selfless recognition of suffering in others. When you truly see another person's pain and respond without thinking about what you'll get out of it, something remarkable happens. The boundary between you and them blurs. For a moment, the will's grip on your individual ego loosens. Here's why this works. The will, remember, is what generates the illusion that you're separate and your needs matter more than anyone else's. It creates the experience of being an isolated self, constantly looking out for number one. Compassion temporarily breaks that illusion. When you genuinely feel someone else's suffering as your own, you're no longer trapped in the prison of your individual desires. After 50, this becomes especially relevant because you've got perspective now. You've suffered. You've lost things. You know what it feels like to be disappointed, to grieve, to fear the future. That experience makes real compassion possible in a way it might not have been when you were 30 and invincible. You can recognize suffering when you see it because you've been there. But here's the trap to avoid. Don't confuse compassion with transactional kindness. If you're volunteering because it makes you feel useful, or because you need purpose, or because you want recognition, that's still the will. That's still ego-driven wanting dressed up as altruism. Real compassion doesn't ask anything back. It doesn't need to feel good about itself. It just responds to suffering because suffering is there. Where do you find opportunities for this? Everywhere, if you're paying attention. The neighbor who lost their spouse, the friend struggling with illness, the stranger at the grocery store who's clearly having a rough day. You don't need to fix anything. You just need to see them, really see them, and respond from that place of genuine connection. Schopenhauer believed this was more than just moral goodness. It was a glimpse of metaphysical truth. We're not actually separate. The will flows through all of us. When you stop defending your little corner of the will and recognize the shared struggle, you get relief. Not because you've satisfied desire, but because you've stepped outside the whole game temporarily. Practical application. Once this week, do something genuinely selfless. Not for credit, not for feeling good. Just because someone's suffering and you can help. Notice what happens to your own sense of dissatisfaction in those moments. It won't solve everything, but it'll show you a way out of the ego trap. Now for Schopenhauer's third path, the most misunderstood and possibly most useful for people after 50. When Schopenhauer talked about asceticism, he didn't mean becoming a monk or renouncing all pleasure. He meant something more subtle and more practical, the deliberate reduction of desire itself, not satisfying desires and not just suppressing them, actually seeing through them, recognizing that most of what you think you need, you don't. For people after 50, this is incredibly powerful because you've already lived long enough to see the pattern. You've wanted things intensely, gotten them, and watched the satisfaction evaporate. You've chased goals that turned out to be empty. You've accumulated things that now feel like burdens. You have the lived experience to recognize that desire itself is the problem, not the lack of satisfaction. Asceticism, in Schopenhauer's sense, is looking at a new desire when it arises and asking, do I really need this? Or is this just the will generating noise again? It's the practice of letting desires pass without acting on them. Not because you're depriving yourself, but because you see clearly that feeding the desire won't actually help. Let's make this concrete. You're scrolling through travel websites thinking about another trip. Schopenhauer's asceticism isn't saying don't travel. It's asking, am I planning this trip because I genuinely want this experience, or am I trying to fill the void again? If it's the latter, the trip won't work. You'll come home unsatisfied. The void will still be there. Or you're thinking about buying something, new furniture, new gadget, new hobby equipment. Asceticism asks, will this actually improve my life? Or am I just feeding the cycle? If you've bought 10 things trying to make yourself happy and none of them worked, maybe the 11th isn't the answer either. This isn't about becoming a minimalist or living in deprivation. It's about strategic disengagement from the will's demands. You start recognizing desires for what they are: noise, mental static, the will trying to keep you on the treadmill. And when you see them clearly, you can let them go without feeling like you're missing out. Because you're not missing out. You're escaping. Practical application. For the next week, when a strong desire arises to buy something, to do something, to achieve something, pause. Don't act on it immediately. Just watch it. Notice how it feels. Notice how it tries to convince you that this time will be different. Then notice how it fades if you don't feed it. This is asceticism, not renunciation, but clear seeing. Now here's the crucial question. Once you understand all this, how do you actually live with it? Here's where we need to be very careful. Understanding Schopenhauer's philosophy doesn't mean giving up on life or becoming cynically detached. There's a massive difference between acceptance and resignation. Resignation says, nothing matters, so why bother? Acceptance says, this is how things are, and I can work with that. You're never going to permanently satisfy the will. That's not defeatism. That's just reality. The chronic dissatisfaction you've been feeling isn't going away completely. But when you stop expecting it to go away, when you stop blaming yourself for it, something shifts. The dissatisfaction loses its power. It's still there, but it's no longer running your life. Think of it like tinnitus, that persistent ringing in your ears. You can't make it stop. Fighting it makes it worse. But when you accept that it's there and stop giving it your full attention, you can live a full life anyway. The ringing doesn't disappear, but it stops dominating your experience. That's the kind of acceptance Schopenhauer points toward with the will. After 50, this acceptance becomes easier because you've got evidence. You've seen how many times you thought, this will finally make me happy, and it didn't. You've watched the pattern repeat enough times that you can't unsee it anymore. That's actually good news. It means you're ready to stop playing a rigged game and start living differently. So what does that look like practically? It means engaging with life without expecting ultimate satisfaction from it. You still pursue things, but you're not chasing the fantasy of permanent contentment. You travel because you find it interesting, not because you think it'll fix you. You maintain relationships because connection matters, not because you think someone else will complete you. You work on projects because the work itself has value, not because you think achievement will bring lasting peace. This is the paradox Schopenhauer understood. The peace you're seeking comes from giving up the search for peace, not giving up on life, giving up on the illusion that life will ever be perfectly satisfying. When you stop demanding that existence deliver permanent happiness, you can actually enjoy what's here. The sunset is beautiful without needing to be eternally beautiful. The conversation is meaningful without needing to be permanently fulfilling. Framework. When you catch yourself thinking, I just need X, and then I'll be happy, recognize it. That's the will talking. The truth is, you need X, then you'll want Y, then you'll want Z forever. Once you see that clearly, You can participate in life without being enslaved by it. You can want things without being destroyed when they don't satisfy you permanently. You can pursue goals without collapsing when achievement feels hollow. That's not pessimism. That's freedom. And it's available to you right now, not someday when you finally figure everything out. So here it is. Schopenhauer taught us that the chronic dissatisfaction you feel isn't your fault, and it's not fixable in the way you've been trying to fix it. The will, that blind, insatiable force, is running underneath everything. You can find temporary relief through art, compassion, and strategic asceticism. But permanent satisfaction? That's not on the table. And that's actually okay. My challenge: pick one of Schopenhauer's 3 paths this week. Just one. Spend an hour in genuine aesthetic contemplation. Or do something truly selfless. Or practice watching a desire without feeding it. Just once. See what happens when you stop demanding permanent happiness and start accepting temporary relief. If this brought clarity, click like. If you want more philosophy that tells the truth instead of selling hope, subscribe. And tell me in the comments, which of Schopenhauer's 3 paths resonates most with you right now? I'm curious where you are in this process. See you tomorrow.